Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having an amazing day. We're taking a quick look here at Bitcoin. It won't be a super long one today. We're just going to touch on a few key factors with high block capital data on the back end, as well as a few things on the charts I think are kind of, pretty, I wouldn't say obvious, but it looks like we might see a transition from this downtrend to potentially an uptrend. Again, today being a Friday, just before the weekend, we may not see a tremendous amount of movement, but you got to recognize that something's going to happen here soon, and we're right on the edge of either disaster or just a simple routine bounce off that weekly low. Okay, so again, we'll touch on that and much more if you're new to the channel. I'm not a financial advisor. I do hope that you can learn something here today. If you do want to become a better trader, cryptocash.tech is a site, link down below. And obviously make sure you reference our exclusive offer here, linked down below as well for BingX. They offer no KYC or VPN in the United States, and you get a pretty healthy little bonus for trading with the volume, 3,000. It's really easy to do, and then just depositing $50. Before July 31st, if you register, of course, with that link, you'll be eligible for future competitions as well. So congrats to, again, a lot of our community members benefiting from that. And thank you, BingX, for offering a good benefit there, because again, KYC requirements from, Bybit, BitGet, as well as KuCoin, all three of the larger exchanges effectively we got hit pretty hard here in the States. Okay, same with my Canadian residents as well. So unfortunately, that's the situation, but BingX has got you covered. What I'm looking at here, though, with Bitcoin, and I want to talk about this because there's a few elephants in the room, right? In other words, we got this RSI, we're kind of averaging out right at 50. Now, you could say it's at 49.5. It really doesn't matter at this point. We're kind of right at the low point. What that implies is that we're right there at a key level support. Okay, so losing that support level, dropping and closing below somewhere in the range of 29,500, then we're going to be in a position where the price action should continue lower to fill that fair value gap at 28,400. Okay? So again, just to refresh your memory here, there is a fair value gap here, about 28.4, upwards of about 29.5. So that range is a place in which we could see the price action get just wicked down and right back up. In other words, it'll wreck tons of longs and it'll just come right back up and act like it never happened again. We see this happen time and time again. It's a very common thing, okay? Regardless, that is a potential reality. We got to recognize that. But we're still trending above water. If we look at the moving averages, we got the 50-day SMA working its way up at about 29,000 approximately. So it's a very good sign, good consolation. If we look at the 4-hour, a very similar scenario here as well, whereas the simple moving average, the 200, which is typically runs concurrent with the 50 on the daily, that's actually above the price action at 30,000. So we got this, some people refer to it as a death cross where the 50 intersects with the 200 in downward fashion. I prefer not to look at it as a significant outlier. It's just kind of letting us know there's resistance there. And we know this already. Look at 30,300. Consistently retested, consistently rejected. Okay? So just keep in mind, it's going to take some volume to get through that level. But initially, a closure above 30,000 today, I think is what we're looking for. Okay? So if we take a quick peek here at the RSI, we're still below 50. Once again, closing above 30,000 should put us really close to that 50 plus threshold on that, on the RSI. We can also see stochastics though. This is one thing that's really cool. The stochastic RSI is effectively converging here. And now a lot of times the very first convergence isn't necessarily the most tried and true, like the price doesn't always swing in that direction the first time, but a lot of times it will. So if you look at its history here, stochastic RSI became overextended and diverged effectively. That's right here in the price action, the price dropped from there. We can see this convergence here, right there, is the price going to increase from here? Well, I think the likelihood of it increasing versus decreasing is higher, and here's kind of part of the reason why I think that. If we take a look at the daily here, we've been downtrending for some time, right? So if you look at kind of where we're at here presently, and we take a peek over at TD sequential, there is an 8 on TD sequential, really just implying that we've got 8 straight days of downtrend. Okay, so we've been moving down for 8 days, an approximate of about 6.5%. Okay, that's roughly an average of 0.75, 0.8% per day. Doesn't seem like a lot, but in general, that has to come to an end. And if you look at Bitcoin statistically, for this whole entire year, there has never been a situation where we came up to a 9 and went extreme overtime. Yes, we went to a 9 here, went sideways. We got that. We can see here previously as well. Anytime we see 8s, the price will recover at least within reason. Okay, I'm not saying it dramatically jumps the other way. Sometimes it does, but for the most part, you see an 8 or a 9 on TD sequential here, you're absolutely going to see a reversal. Okay, so Bitcoin is very consistent in continuing in one direction or the other, and then reversing itself quite substantially, right? So again, I would say like if I had to draw numbers here out of a hat, we're looking 9 out of 10 times this year we've seen a TD sequential, or basically a significant increase in volume in either direction, and then this price will turn itself around once it hits that overextended state. All right, so again, is it going to reverse instantly because of this? No, probably not. In fact, it'll probably make a liar out of me and keep going down for the first time this year. But once again, these odds of success are increased if you recognize some patterns, okay? And in most cases, you will see that. Keep in mind this, we're coming into a weekend, so we don't see this volume here today. That could wait until Monday. That could put us at like 10 or 11 days to the downtrend. But once again, I feel as if with us holding this level here of support, we got a strong amount of volume in this range. There's a great chance that we could very well recover. Okay? Again, that's just, it's a possibility. Is it a probability? Honestly, it's hard to say. It's almost a flip of a coin, but once again, this coin is flipping and landing on the same side most every time we see that. Okay, so just a little pattern of success. Take a look at T sequential on the hourly. There's really not too much to note here except that we were overextended here previously, going into that resistance level, came back down, another overextension, and then we're working our way back up. We hit a 9 here. As we can see, we're working our way within the channels. The good news about this is that we got the higher lows so far and parallel highs. So commonly when you have parallel highs and higher lows, it's a recipe for a breakout to the upside. Now, again, you could argue the fact that it came from the upside here and that the price action should go down, which is possibility as well. But again, smaller time frames, less reliable, and patterns. The key here, though, is that we are making higher lows, and that's how you reverse trends. So if the downtrend is, or the trend right now is down, to uptrend, you need to make higher lows, and the inverse, of course, is lower highs. Okay. So again, that's a good thing to see here so far. As far as volume is concerned, let's take a quick look. We're seeing the volume kind of taper off, which makes sense here leading into a weekend. I wouldn't expect a tremendous amount of volatility tomorrow or Sunday, but we could see something closer to today's close as kind of a definitive direction leading into the weekend. A lot of times they try to scare you into something like that. This being an example right here. This occurred on Friday. Big surprise, Friday morning. We just had a massive dump, and the weekend was like, oh my God, what do we do, right? So we could very well see a big push this weekend, and it could define the direction, and that could very well come later today. So just be mindful. These things do happen a lot of times when the candlesticks close just beforehand. It'll crank in one way or the other, but for right now, if we haven't seen it just yet, I think we're going to see kind of slow and steady uptrend for the next couple of days. Other than that, what else we want to look at here on the hourly would just be the Ichimoku cloud. I believe we got rejected here previously and came right back down below. So keep in mind now that we are effectively range bound in this range of 29,600 upwards of 30,300. In this range here that we're in, now that we have that established, the cloud will become less reliable. Okay, so just because it breaks up above here doesn't mean it's a definitive direction. What it does tell us is that we're back up above that resistance level, that $30,000 resistance level that we're seeing so far that's being formed on Fibonacci, the 0.236 level. So if we can get above that here, I would say leading into the weekend would be very, very good. So I'm hoping and looking for a closure of 30,000 or higher leading into the weekend. One last thing to touch on is the weekly high-low open close. We can see here as well the previous week low working as a tentative resistance here so far. Okay, so again, that's another reason why a close above 30,000 will be very, very helpful for us. Okay? So all in all, not terrible things here for Bitcoin. It looked a lot worse. Obviously, we've seen some nasty candle wicks, but the candle wicks are getting higher, and the higher lows are forming. Okay, so I think that's a more positive sign here, but there's no doubt that the bias right now is tentatively down. You got to recognize that the overall sentiment is that we could very well see that 28,400 mark reached with that fair value gap. So just be mindful of that. Try not to go super hard right now on some long positions just because we're overextended to the downside. Overextension plays need to come with other confirming factors, and we don't have those just yet. Okay, so again, kind of a stagnant week, and I apologize to anyone who's been following my signals. Honestly, this week has been fairly garbage to trade. There's been a few outliers here with XLM and XRP, I think it was, Chainlink yesterday. But minus those small little things, like there's not a tremendous amount of opportunities just yet. So keep in mind, scanning the market, looking for some good stuff here, but patience does win in the long run. Okay, so please be patient here with the signals, or just in general, if you're trading yourself, try not to overtrade in situations like these. Until we have somewhat of a definitive direction, there is no reason to start over leveraging or using large position size. Again, just my strategy, but what do I know? I've only survived in the market for 20 years plus. Obviously, that's traditional markets first and then crypto. All right, thanks again so much for joining me here. Hope you have a good rest of your day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.